We're live now.
Thank you for that, Mr. Franklin. Okay, it is now 2 o'clock, and so I resume the hearing. We're still waiting for, are we, Mr. Smith?
Yes,
No,
still...
I'm not sure Mr. Smith is going to be attending today. I'm representing North Hertfordshire District Council on this matter.
Okay, right, marvellous. Thank you very much for that then. Okay, matter 27, the optional national technical standards for water efficiency and the nationally described internal space standards for dwellings. In essence, national policy stroke guidance allows for the use of these as proposed through policies SP9 and D1 so far, in circumstances where there is evidence of need and where viability has been considered. So I want to look at those two things, and perhaps if we take the nationally described space standard first, for no reason other than it's the first one dealt with in the council's statement. So the nationally described space standard first of all then. Yeah, my apologies in advance if you're going to take me to other documents, which I suspect you are, and in any event, I probably want to go to them. I had them all nicely opened up on my computer, which then had a mini crash during the lunch break. So unfortunately, they've now all closed up. So you might have to bear with me a little bit during this session. First of all, then, on the nationally described space standard, is the evidence of need adequate and sufficiently robust? And is that for you, Mr. De Coco?
Yes, thank you. So we have obviously sent our response to matter 27. It updates in part our initial evidence document, which is referenced HOU 12. I don't know if you've got that open or would like some time to open it.
It's one of those ones that I did have open, if you bear with me.
Would it be helpful for me to list the documents initially that are a part of the background to this particular matter, or just try and deal with it naturally? And
yeah, let's go for the organic approach.
Okay, no problem. So yes, we've sent updated. We haven't added to the evidence that we initially submitted, but I have reviewed the evidence in HOW 12, I'll call it, to check what was in it and to also add to it to give some context to the schemes, why they did, why they didn't comply, was there any reasoning, and so on. So we've submitted all that. I wasn't planning on going through each example in depth because it's all there in writing. But in summary, we believe that there is evidence that there won't be voluntary compliance with the technical space standards. So we believe that we have evidenced a need through showing examples of past housing developments which have clearly not complied either partially or completely with the technical space standards. The other elements, obviously viability we'll get onto at another time, but the other consideration in regards to timing, we believe that this particular requirement has has been public for quite some time, since our initial publication of the proposed plan in 2016.
Do forgive me, Mr. De Coco.
Yes.
I didn't catch what you said then.
So yeah, sorry, I was just going back through the matter. So in terms of need, evidence in a need for the or requirement for the technical space standards in a policy, we believe that HOW 12, as updated by our most recent comments submitted in advance of this hearing session.
Yeah, that's the sort of how should I describe it? Extra flesh on the bones that you've included within your. It's in the statement itself, isn't it? I think in your statement.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And then on the matter of timing, which is an additional test in the planning practice guidance for the imposition of the standards, we believe that the requirement to meet the national space standards has been evidenced in our, or has been publicly available to developers in our plan since it was initially proposed in 2016. So we don't feel there's a need for any sort of transitional arrangement with that policy.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I cut you off then, Mr. De Coco. Did I not?
No, but if you would like me to add anything or explain any of the additional flesh on the bones, as you say, that we put in the most recent statement, I'm happy to do so. I would add as well a recent development in the general permitted development order, in which it has been added that from April 2019 or 2020, sorry, any new dwellings allowed through the general permitted development order will have to adhere to the national space standards that we are seeking to be implemented in this local plan. It raises the issue of potentially having standards in our local plan at a lesser height than at the national level.
Okay, so that's new dwellings created under permitted development rights.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of need, then you looked at 75 units, wasn't it?
Sorry, say that again.
So you reviewed in HOU 12 75 units.
No, sorry. I'll maybe.
I'm looking at paragraph 6 of your statement.
Yeah. So, of all of the units that were proposed and assessed from all of the schemes, I'm not sure what the total number was. 75 of the units that were proposed or have been built out as a result of those schemes did not meet the technical standards. So that was just a statement saying that 75 of the units. Oh, no, sorry, I've misread it. My apologies. My apologies. Yes.
As I'd had it, you'd reviewed 75 units and that less than half of them met the standard.
Sorry, yes, that is correct. I misread it. My apologies.
Yeah, in terms of the units that you reviewed then through HOU 12, how did you a light upon those those particular 75?
Well, I was. I must admit at this stage I wasn't involved in the creation of How 12. I only provided the update, but I believe that they were randomly selected housing development sites. It wasn't looking for a particular number of units. It was selecting a particular a sample of the schemes at the time of writing.
And sir, that's set out at paragraph 19 of the matter statement, in which it's stated that they were randomly selected for analysis.
Okay, thank you. I don't intend to go through the particular schemes with you. You know, I'm just simply going to take that as read. In terms of a sample size, I get the point that you didn't go about deliberately picking out the schemes that looked most suspicious to you in terms of not meeting the space standard. But in terms of the sample size that you looked at, would you say that that was a reasonable number of units? It's sort of representative.
Yes, I believe it was representative of the time that the samples were selected, i.e. it was how many, proportionate to the amount of development proposals that were on the table at the time. And in terms of actually measuring the particular proposed developments, it's quite a resource intensive process. So we didn't want to take too large a sample size due to the sheer amount of time that it would take to measure each individual unit proposed.
So you say then, do you, that you took a proportionate approach?
Yes, sir. Also, the sites that that were a result of the random selection, as you will see when you look through the samples, are quite representative of a range of different types of development, i.e. greenfield, brownfield, conversions, so on and so forth, not just one sort of select type of or form of housing development.
And you have some bungalows in there as well, I note.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. In terms of, I don't want. I'm not going to ask you anything further in relation to need. Sorry, bear with me. But in relation to this nationally described space standard, then I'll go to question B and the consideration of viability.
So I want a document for you to load. So it would be document TI2, which is our local plan viability assessment update, which states within it that it has been informed by the requirement to adhere to the nationally described space standards. So it has already been accounted for in the council's evidence base. Following our statement continues as following review of comments made as a result of consultation on this particular aspect. There was a comment about getting the correct number or a suitable number of dwellings within sites whilst adhering to the space standards, which we thought may well be a matter that may fall under viability, i.e. if the proposed schemes we've put forward have to adhere to the space standards, can they get the same amount of units as we have estimated into those site allocations?
I did what I wanted to come on to that, but so if I could just pause you there just for a moment, put a pin temporarily in that point, just in the viability update. Can you take me to the relevant part of that?
Yes, it's on page 6, paragraph XI.
Right, okay. So yeah, I think you were linking the point made about what making dwellings potentially slightly larger might mean for site capacity and therefore viability. And I asked you to put a pin in it. If you remove that pin now.
No problem. So we thought it may be helpful to review some of the less constrained sites within HOW 12, HOU 12, I should say, to see what kind of impact meeting the space requirement on those that they didn't meet would have on the total delivery of houses. In doing so, we reviewed the space that was afforded for larger market units and found that reducing 1 or 2 of the number of larger market units on the site could easily accommodate the additional space required to make the smaller units compliant with the technical space standards. I think in conclusion, it was a few less double detached garages and a little bit less space for the larger 1 or 2 of the larger units, not all of them. You would still accommodate easily the same quantum of units whilst meeting the space standard for all dwellings, not just the select few.
Oh, sorry, I think I misunderstood. I thought that first of all that you'd said that you if you reduce the site capacity by 1 or 2 dwellings. Did I hear that wrong?
Yes, yeah, sorry, sir.
Apologies, no, my fault.
You wouldn't need to reduce the site capacity at all. It would just be reducing some of the excess space from some of the larger units would easily accommodate the additional space required for the smaller units, which did not comply with the space standards, i.e. too much space was afforded to the larger market units and a small reduction.
Bear with me a sec while I catch up. And that, you say, would easily compensate. Did I hear that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And where do I see that analysis?
So we have concluded that in paragraph 35, I believe, quite succinctly concludes that in our response, our written response.
In your hearing statement.
Exactly, yes, sorry.
Okay. Is anyone else here this afternoon to talk about the nationally described space standard before I move on to the technical standard for water efficiency? Okay, very good. I'll move then to the water efficiency issue. And question A about whether the evidence of need is adequate and sufficiently robust. Once again, the floor is yours, Mr. De Coco.
Thank you, sir. So we have written in response in our hearing statement. We do rely somewhat on the input of the Environment Agency, Anglian Water and Affinity Water as very interested parties in this matter. I think the...
Yeah, just to help me out, Affinity Water.
Mm-hmm.
Who are they?
They are the water supply company for the area.
Not Anglian.
Anglian Water are the wastewater disposal company for some of the area.
And Affinity Water is the water provider, in effect.
Exactly. Yes, yes, sir.
The water company.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as well, you said the Environment Agency, didn't you?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and they all say that this is an area of high water stress.
Exactly that, combined with a strong aim to reduce and cease extraction from chalk aquifers, which has a negative environmental impact. So, in order to reduce extraction, the best method is felt to be to reduce consumption.
Mr. Dakoko, so if you just bear with me a sec while my note taking catches up. Do you say chalk aquifers?
That's correct, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
So the aim to reduce and cease extraction from chalk aquifers, I will get it right, has a negative environmental impact, and reducing consumption is considered to be the best way to reduce the need to extract from chalk aquifers, whilst the relevant, I believe, Affinity Water maintain their responsibility for providing water in a sustainable way to the area.
Okay.
I'm happy to continue to try and flesh that out for you, sir, if you'd like. Or are you happy with what's been said so far?
I've followed what you said so far. I mean, if there is any additional flesh to add to those bones, then that's something I'd like to hear.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to add is that a lot of our evidence base in terms of sustainability and environmental impact of development is based on reducing consumption from these new dwellings below the to the optional standard, in order to reduce the environmental impact from increased extraction from chalk aquifers. So to remove that requirement would require reassessing the environmental impact of the developments throughout that are the basis of the local plan.
Is that because it's something that is embedded in the considerations of the sustainability appraisal?
Yes, I believe a lot of, just go back to what I've written down here. So yeah, it would require revisiting studies, agreements and conclusions that have been reached on the assumption of the inclusion of the water efficiency standards in the local plan.
Okay, thank you. I see, Mr. Lovegrove, that your hand is raised. What I think I'll do is ask Mr. De Coco to complete the logical sequence and to answer the question B in relation to the water efficiency standard, and then I'll bring you in at that point. Okay. But if you keep your hand raised, though, for now, that's great. So on B then, and viability.
Okay, I'm not muted. Sorry about that, sir. So yes, on viability, again, I would refer you to TI2, the local plan viability assessment.
Yeah.
Update. I'm just going to get the page number for you. Over there when you need it. So it's page 20, paragraph 2.2.3. And it states, for this review, we have assumed that the council would introduce the minimum level of compliance, i.e. 110 litres per person per day, and for that, no additional cost allowance is required, in our opinion.
That 110 litres per person per day being the optional water efficiency standard. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Mr. De Coco?
No, I'm okay for now, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lovegrove.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's mainly about the viability of all this that we should like to make a point, and in fact 4 points altogether. The first point, TTL have had close contacts with Affinity Water, particularly during the periods 2016-17, and we found that Affinity have got 4 main problems. Firstly, EU legislation restricting the use of aquifers. They can't pull out as much water out of the aquifers as they used to be able to. There's climate change, which puts probability factors all over the place. There's the third point there is public awareness.
Sorry, my apologies, Mr. Lovegrove. I didn't quite catch the second point about climate change.
Well, climate change puts all their probabilities all over the place. You know, the maximum rainfall is going up and the minimum rainfall is going down, the maximum heat's going up. It just puts in more extremes into all their modeling exercises. So whether they can supply water or not just changes all the probabilities.
So is the point there then that the water resource within the aquifers is less predictable?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The third point is that there's increased public awareness of the urgent need to protect the biodiversity of the world rare streams originating from shore uplands. North Hertfordshire has a disproportionately high proportion of the world's shore uplands in this respect. That's the third reason. And the fourth main problem they've got, of course, is aging pipework, which we're not too concerned with here today. That's the first overall point I'd like to make. The second point is the main solution to all this is to reduce demand. And to do this, they have to rely on prospective supplies from other authorities, which becomes questionable when you factor in climate change. Yes, when you factor in climate change, it just makes all the calculations more complicated because the extremes are wider, the maximums and the minimums are wider. But the particular disturbing consideration in all this, Affinity Water has a policy not to consider capture and storage until 2080. 2080. No new reservoirs or long distance pipes coming from, for example, from mid-Wales. They're not even going to think about doing things like that until 2080. That's the second point. Going on to the third point, we support the Council's expressed aim to achieve the Building Regulation G optional target of 110 litres per person per day. Technology, including low flow showers, and low water use toilets, along with other water saving solutions, are now readily available. Hence, there should be no viability issues as regards usage arising from specifying the optional water efficiency target. And as has already been mentioned, this can be achieved with no uplifting cost. Additionally, given that the residential water use is now metered in this area, designing homes for water efficiency will help residents to lower water bills. All good stuff. However, this will undoubtedly reduce demand, but that alone will not resolve Affinity Water supply problem. There is only so much rainfall. Affinity are the first to admit this, hence the viability has not been demonstrated with regard to supply. To stand any chance of the local plan being deemed viable, the plan should have the absolute minimum number of new homes. And the new homes, and I apologize for going off your subject at the moment, but just I'd like to add the phrase, as the number of new homes should be reduced at least down to ONS 2018 projections.
I already have that point from previous sessions, Mr. Lovegrave. I'm not going to note it yet again for this session.
Fourth point, the water authorities and the council recognise that this area is in a serious state of water stress, and they have this legal obligation to supply. However, this does not guarantee supply under trending conditions of climate change. If you review Affinity's graphs for the middle of the century, admittedly going on beyond 2031, the potential disparity between supply and demand is absolutely alarming. The two graphs diverge like mad. An increasing population in its turn increases the probability of damage to the aquifers and chalk streams and increases the likelihood of hosepipe bans, standpipes on street corners, and even barriers in the neighborhoods. So those are the 4 points. And just to sum up, we in TTL consider that from a water perspective, water demand should be absolutely minimized to this local plan. One can only do that by minimizing population as far as one can. And the council is right to specify higher optional standard of water efficiency and should strengthen the evidence for both need and viability along the lines they have suggested.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lovegrave. Okay, I don't have any other issues that I want to pick up on, or any additional questions. So unless anyone wants to add anything else, I will otherwise adjourn for the day. Okay, very good. Just on a housekeeping point, actually, before I do, and I'll use this forum now because Louise St. John Howe is sort of otherwise engaged and a bit more difficult to get hold of. We have, Miss Daly, as you know, our wash up session tomorrow, using no water whatsoever. I did ask if the council has or would have by then a list of the actions and main modifications and the like for us to use as the basis for our discussion, but I haven't heard anything on that.
So yes, we're in the process of preparing that, and we will have that to you as you requested by close of play today.
Oh, okay, right. That's smashing. Thank you for confirming that. Okay, unless there is anything else, then I will adjourn until tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. If I can ask that everyone does this time click leave the meeting, otherwise you will be forever trapped in this particular hearing session. It's now 14:42. I adjourn the hearing to resume tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. Cheerio.
This is ground control to Major Tom. I'm sitting in the most peculiar way.